What's up, guys? Today I want to answer a question I got about deload weeks. Specifically, what are the benefits of a deload week and how do you properly take or structure your deload week? So for those of you who haven't heard the term before, a deload week is similar to saying a recovery week or a back off week. It's essentially a period in your training where you take a little bit less work or you take some stress out of your program and give yourself a chance to recover. But let's get right into the specifics. So we're going to go over the 4 benefits of a deload week and then how to do it. Benefit number 1, to recover body and mind. And that's important, but we'll talk about that in a second. So recovering physically, recovering your body, that should be pretty straightforward. If you've ever engaged in any type of intense training program, whether that's weights, cardio, cross training, CrossFit, martial arts, whatever, you understand that the day in, day out grind of training starts to beat you up. You start to get a little bit achy, you start to get a little bit tired, you start to feel things that you hadn't felt before. All of those things. Taking a lighter week will give your body a chance to catch up and recover and feel a little bit better. Now, I believe that mentally, it's probably more important to have a deload week than it is physically. And essentially that's just because the stress of trying to push your limits all the time beats you up mentally. You know, when you start a training program, you jump out of bed, you're like, okay, today's Monday, we're squatting, we're doing this, tomorrow I'm doing this, Wednesday I'm going to the track for 800 meter repeats, whatever it happens to be. You're fired up and you're ready to go. As you pour in more and more energy over the weeks into your training program, it starts to turn into like, oh shit, it's Monday. Squats, that kind of thing. And taking a little bit of time off allows you to recover some of the mental energy that you have to use to be training full force all the time. Now that ties in pretty directly to benefit number 2. The second main benefit of taking a deload week is to increase motivation. So similar to recovering mentally, I've always found with myself and with clients, taking a week off, you come back more motivated. You get some of that fire back. You know the expression, you don't know what you have until it's gone? This works much the same way. Taking that week off from training, you start to miss pushing hard. You start to miss sweating that much, being a little out of breath sometimes. There's something nice about all of that. I think anybody who achieves a high level in any type of training results always has a little bit of masochism in them. And this will allow you to miss putting out that effort. The other thing that's a major advantage of taking a deload week, because you're still in the gym, but you're doing a lot less work, and we'll get to that at the end of the video. But basically, when it comes to increasing your motivation, I find that giving yourself that room to step back from the program, to not have to worry so much about the workouts you're doing every day, gives you a chance to look at your goals, look at the progress you've been making, go through your training log, which you should definitely be keeping, but that's another topic. Go through your training log and look at what you've been doing. Look at the progress you've made. Think about the progress you still want to make. It gives you a chance to step away from the process. You're not so engaged in training that week or that day or however long you end up deloading for. It gives you a chance to step back and look at it and refire yourself up. Think about what you're doing. Think about why you're doing it. Make any changes that you've been wanting to make. Whatever it happens to be, it gives you a chance to get out of the trenches and get that overview back, which I find incredibly motivating. Now, number 3, and this is maybe the most important benefit in terms of my job as a coach, in terms of putting these into people's programs, is to prevent overtraining. So, a little while ago I wrote an article about recovery in general, and I'll put a link to that below this video in the description. So if you want to read more about overtraining and what that is and how to counteract it, you can. But essentially, overtraining is the continual overreaching or the continual period of being a little bit past what you can recover from over an extended period of time. So you don't get overtrained in a workout. You don't get overtrained in 2 workouts. You don't get overtrained in a week. It's this systemic imbalance between how much stress you have on your plan and how much recovery you're capable of. Now, this is kind of tricky because in terms of developing a training program, let's say this is your effort here. There is a tiny window that you want to try and get into in terms of how much effort you're putting out in every training session to get results without overtraining. And if you put in too little effort, you don't break that bottom line, you won't cause enough stimulus for your body to adapt and cause the changes you want, which is bad. If you continually break that line, the top line here, you're causing enough stress for your body to adapt, but you're doing so much work that you won't be able to recover from it completely. Now, hitting in this little box is ideal, but almost impossible to do because we never know where it's at. You can make the most optimal training program in the world, but you can't guarantee you're in there all the time. More likely, you're going to have a lot of periods where you're just above that line. And in terms of your results week to week, that's fine. That's not going to kill you. It's not going to hurt you. You'll get great results. But if you do this forever, constantly staying above that line, you will end up overtraining, and that will hurt you. That is not where you want to be. Having a deload in your program regularly will allow you to not have to worry about all these times you break the line, because you'll have a counterbalance. You'll have that safety net under you, similar to the overflow in a sink, where if it happens to get too full, that'll let off the steam and you don't have to worry about it. It's much like an overflow in a sink. It's something you never really think about until you need it. And if you get to the point where you're like, oh man, I messed up, I should have been taking deloads regularly in the next 6 months, you're going to be taking a major deload in terms of getting yourself back to a place that you can start to adapt again and feel better. Now, finally, one of the coolest benefits of a deload week, and probably my personal favorite when I was competing in strongman, is you come back stronger. The reason training works, the reason putting your body under stress, whether that's cardio, weightlifting, whatever it happens to be, the reason that works is because your body super compensates. It gets better than it was before to deal with that stress. Sports scientists call that adaptive reconstruction. So basically your body is remaking itself to adapt to the stress you're putting it under. And this is why we train. Otherwise we'd just be hammering ourselves day after day doing the same things, not changing. Just, oh, I'm exhausted. Tomorrow I'll wake up, I won't be exhausted. I'll do the exact same thing, get exhausted again, and repeat that cycle. And that's not fun. It's fun to improve. Now, similar to what I just showed you, I'm going to put a graphic up on the screen because, as you have probably figured out, I'm not the best artist. So you can see that image now. So looking at that picture, you can see the training cycle. And this happens in a daily workout. This happens in a weekly cycle, a monthly cycle. The pattern is the same. Training beats you up. Your body starts to recover after the period of what is called exhaustion, obviously, and that's literal and then both scientific in terms of real exhaustion internally. But after you have that period of recovery, you super compensate. You come back over where you started. So looking at that graphic, you can see that what you want is to get to the period where it comes back over top. So how can a deload week help you do that? Essentially, like I said, that graphic, that image that you just saw is happening day to day in your workouts, but it's also happening over the long term. You're steadily getting exhausted from your training program. If you're not steadily getting exhausted, just slowly, you're not training hard enough. Having these deload weeks allows you an overall period of supercompensation for your entire body as a unit. Every time I took a deload week during a hard period when I was competing in strongman, I came back and smashed my next few weeks. It was the bomb. I felt like a complete animal because physically, top to bottom, I had systemically recovered. And that's one of the biggest benefits of the deload. Now, how do you take a deload? This is pretty important. We've discovered why you want to take a deload, and now how do you do it? And there's 3 things we need to talk about. 1, how many sets and reps are you going to do on a deload? 2, how much weight are you going to lift on a deload? And 3, how frequently in your program or how much of your time are you going to spend deloading? So let's get into that. Reps. 50%. This doesn't have to be exact. You don't need a calculator. You don't have to do 16.25 reps or whatever. You're going to do about half the amount of reps you would normally do. And this is the biggest mistake I see people making with their deloads. I've seen gyms post their deload weeks or deload workouts or whatever, and they'll cut the weight down, which we'll talk about in a second, which is perfect. But because the weight's down, they think, oh, okay, let's triple the reps. So if you're looking at overall stress on your body, and I won't get into this too much, this gets a little further into training science than we need, but 10 pounds, 10 times equals 100 pounds of work. 100 pounds of total volume is what it's called. Now, if we cut the weight in half, 5 pounds, and we double the reps, we're back to that same amount of total stress. Now, obviously this won't affect your body exactly the same, but this is not what we're trying to do. We're looking for that systemic recovery after the period of exhaustion we just saw on that graph. So you're gonna be cutting the reps down even though the weights are light. One advantage of taking a deload week, apart from the advantages we talked about, is it gives you a period of time where you can also work on perfecting your weaknesses, working on form on different movements, all that kind of stuff. Don't take this as okay, I'm gonna do lighter weights, but I'm gonna cook myself with those. You're gonna miss all the benefits of a deload. Now, in terms of weight, how much weight should you be lifting for half the number of reps? Weight, you're gonna be in the neighborhood of 60 to 70%, maybe 75, depending on how you're feeling. But let's give you an example here completely. So if you would normally do 4 sets of 10, so 40 total reps of squats, let's say, at 100 pounds, we're gonna go to 20 total reps at 60 pounds. So you could do, instead of 4 sets of 10 at 100 pounds, we'll cut it down, we'll do 4 sets of 5 at 60 pounds or 70 pounds. And you should feel it's still enough weight that you can feel like you're doing something. You can get a little bit out of the workout. You can keep the movement pattern fresh. You can perfect your form and practice the things you're missing. But this is where we're trying to be in terms of total amount of work. Now you can also play with this depending on your exercises. When I was competing in strongman, it was very important to be able to squat heavy, deadlift heavy, all that kind of stuff. So I would typically deadlift or squat or do my main movements at more like 70-75% for half the amount of reps. And all my little movements after that, my rows, back extensions, whatever it happens to be, I would go more for 60% and 50% of the reps again. But play with that and see how you feel. It's better to do a little bit too little on a recovery week or on a deload week than it is to do too much. Because again, remember, we're looking for this systemic recovery. It's supposed to leave you feeling fresh by the end. Now, last point, frequency. My favorite pattern of deloading is deloading 25% of the time. So 1 out of every 4 weeks. This isn't set in stone. Now, that being said, this is where I had the absolute best results in my own training and see most of the best results with the clients I have training for strength and power and things like that. This is my 100% recommendation for where you should start with your deload weeks. Every 4th week, deload, no matter what. This means if you feel nervous about that, I'm gonna miss one week out of every month, train your ass off for the first 3 and earn that deload every 4th week. But this is my best advice in terms of where to start with your deloads. After that, obviously the laws of individual differences come into play, and you can see what you think is best for you moving forward. But my absolute best advice, 50% of the reps, 60 to 70, maybe 75% of the weight, 1 in every 4 weeks. And you should be experiencing all 4 of the main benefits we talked about earlier in the video. So if you want more information, like I said, I will link my article on overtraining and recovery in the description of the video. If you prefer to read this or want to reference it later, I'll also include a written copy of all the information I just gave you in the description as well. And if you like this, subscribe to the channel because I have a lot more videos like this coming, and I'll talk to you soon.